Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the Big Movement Podcast. Today we have a special guest. We have Jen Hall, who is the founder and director of the Zenerjen Foundation. And she created this as a reward for quitting smoking over 12 years ago, immersing herself with horses. Over the years, she's invested herself into personal development from people such as Tony Robbins to really transform not only herself, but the lives of others with using horses. So she's helped people who have women who have endured domestic abuse, children, PTSD victims in terms of when you're talking about veterans, to how they can be able to be around horses and change their lives. So we're going to really understand how she's done this and more about her mission so we can be able to support her. So I want to give a warm welcome to Jen. So welcome.
Thanks for having me, Byron. I really appreciate taking the time to help me raise awareness and get some support for this amazing program.
Oh, you're welcome. So tell everybody a little bit about your background, because you didn't always start off being around horses, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I actually got into horses as an adult about 12 years ago. I said, if I could quit smoking for a period of time, for 90 days, then I would reward myself with a horseback riding lesson. Little did I know what world I was opening myself up to, when I stepped into that role. So I then immersed myself over the period of time and just fell in love with horses, fell in love with the natural method of training that I used to develop their behavior to where they're more emotionally, mentally, and physically strong. And it really moved me. And that was really a big piece of where the passion came from. But what the tipping point was for me was when I met a guy by the name of Tony Robbins. And if you don't know who he is, I definitely would encourage you to look him up, because when I went to his first seminar, I left that environment saying, oh my gosh, I really need to bring these two worlds together. The parallels between personal development, self-discovery, and introspection and growth, and between that and horsemanship, I was blown away. I said, holy crap, Tony does with people what I do with horses. So over a period of time from then, and really, again, immersing myself into his world and the personal development world, I really started to put together this really incredible program.
Now, that's incredible in itself, because who would have imagined that there would be synergies between what you were doing with horses and what someone like Tony Robbins is doing in personal development? But most people never put together that connection.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. And that's actually been one of the things that until people come out and experience this firsthand, they don't really, like you said, don't really put two and two together. But when you look at a relationship, what does it consist of? You have to build rapport, right? You have to appreciate and understand the other person's world and connect, right? So it's the same with a horse. Horses are nature in its finest form. They are the purest of prey animals, and we are the predators, if you think about it. So putting those two things together, you really have to understand and appreciate their world to be able to have them trust you, feel connected to you, and build rapport with you.
Right. Now, what do you mean by they're the purest of prey animals? Because for a lot of people who, let's say, they've never been around a horse, they only see them on TV or at, let's say, some type of farm festival or something like that, so they don't know much about them.
Yeah, that's a good point too. When you think about horses, you think about, what do you think of? You think of maybe the Budweiser Clydesdales or the Kentucky Derby or something like that. What really I mean when I say that is that horses are prey animals just like zebras and gazelles and things like that. So honestly, we do eat horses, believe it or not. And there are places in Europe, and they don't know they don't know that we're not going to eat them, because we do. And because of the way we have evolved and the way that they have evolved, putting these two things together between a predator like a human and a prey animal like a horse to build that rapport and have that understanding, it takes a certain level of patience and skill and understanding. And the beauty of it, Byron, is when you go out and you engage with these horses, they are a pure reflection of what you put out there. They are a mirror of who you represent. And so they're going to tell you. They're not going to lie. These horses are very specially trained to be very emotionally sensitive. So if they don't like you, they're going to tell you. And through the translations and discussions and demonstrations that we do, you'll have a good understanding of the different personality types that are represented at the barn, whether they be extroverts or introverts or in more intellectual type horses or more instinctual type horses. We all have different personalities, and so do they. And when you step into the stable, one of the things that you're going to realize is that one of the horses speaks to you a little bit more than the others. He would be maybe what you would call your favorite. But when in reality, it's more like attracts like.
Right.
Or opposites attract. I've seen both scenarios where one horse talks to you or speaks to you or resonates with you just a little bit more than the others. And then on the flip side of it, there's one horse in the barn that you're just kind of almost furrow your brow at a little bit. You're not really sure what it is about him, but you just don't quite seem to connect with him. And generally speaking, that's the type of individual that you probably would have the harder time with. Starting to see the parallels?
Oh,
so
definitely.
Are you an extrovert? Are you an introvert? Are you a more confident person? And where do you fall on this chart that we have that I use in my presentations? Where is your thumbprint of your personality? Where does that fall in parallel to the horses? And how can you, with that horse that you really aren't that sure about, how can you build rapport with that type of animal or with that type of person? What type of leader are you? What type of communication skills do you bring to the table? Are you an ogre or are you a wimp? Where do you fall in between those two things? And how can you balance that and refine it to develop a relationship between not only yourself and this gorgeous animal for the time that you're with me, but take it to every area of your life when you leave.
Right. And it's interesting of how they have different personalities. I don't think most people realize that. They're just going to assume, well, it's a horse. They should just have one personality. How did you end up discovering all the different personalities? And then as you're working with them, how did you have to start engaging with them differently to create progress?
Oh, that's almost like you just asked me for the recipe to the secret sauce. It's knowing when to be, where to be, why to be, and what to do when you get there, and when to stop doing what you're doing. And is it any different when you engage with people? When you introduce yourself to someone, how you shake hands, how much eye contact you make, what your body posture is like, what language you use, your tonality, everything that you do when you start engaging or connecting with another human being is very similar to how you're going to engage and connect with a horse. The funny thing about horses are they don't wear masks like we do.
Okay. So they see straight through things.
And they don't hide things themselves. They see you because you can't mask from them what's in your true spirit. And they'll give it right back to you in the same fashion. And we uncover things about ourselves through introspection and interaction with these animals that you didn't even know was happening a lot of times. And it's almost, I don't want to say spiritual, but it is. It's a very spiritual experience. And I've had the term visceral actually thrown around a few times where people come out and say, what I saw you do and how I felt when I engaged and what I heard you say the horse was telling me through your process and your program really shifted me at my core. And I had no idea I was communicating to people in the way that I was. I had no idea my partner or my spouse was acting this way because of the way I was responding. Now I know why Susie in accounting doesn't like me, I understand more clearly about myself and how I can have value and add value to not only my own life, but others.
Right. And, you say that how people do that. Can you give us an example of how someone had that transformation? Because I think what some people think like, well, this sounds interesting, but how does that really relate to me?
Well, I can give you some of my results. So I've had one client lose over 80 pounds. And you're like, well, how do you make the leap from engaging with a horse to going and losing 80 pounds?
Right.
He came out and realized and felt free. He came out and engaged with these horses and just felt this idea that freedom was available to him. And his physical response to that was to get re-engaged with life and to discover what really made him feel free and to start pursuing that. So he started working out, lost a ton of weight. That's just one example. Another one was perfect, and it was the most beautiful thing. And this just happened on Saturday when I had my family day experience. I had a young girl out with her father. Her father was obviously just loved her and adored her a great deal. And this young girl came out and she had her arms crossed, and he had apparently drugged her to this experience, which for a lot of us would be, wow, your dad had to drag you to a horse thing. It's usually the other way around with us young ladies. So she's there and she's very shut down and didn't want to engage. But the moment she started touching my horse Trace, the moment she started to engage and feel his non-judgmental love for her, she opened up. And it was like watching the most beautiful flower bloom. And by the end of the day, she was giving him a bath and laughing and open-hearted like the young girl she was before whatever happened in her life happened. And I found out later that her mom was a drug abuser, and that this young girl was so distraught and so scared that she's on that path herself. And for the past 3 years, her father had been killing himself trying to find answers for her. And now they're going to be sponsoring one of the horses, and she's going to be able to come out and continue to engage in this in a positive way and hopefully change the trajectory of her entire life.
Now, that is an incredible story to share there, because I don't think people realize the profound effect that a single experience can have on someone's life. You typically think it's a culmination of things, but sometimes things come down to a single defining moment that changes everything.
Absolutely. I'm a walking, talking example of that myself. And to take it back to Tony Robbins again, one of his experiences, he plucked me out of the crowd of 2,000 people and did an intervention with me. Now, did everything change instantly and I was all of a sudden perfect? No, of course not. But it changed the direction. Instead of going to Alaska, I was going to Hawaii. And what I mean by that is that he just made that shift in my belief system to allow me to put the effort into a new direction and create an identity for myself that put me in a place to create this amazing program. Whereas before, I only felt like I had to offer the opportunity to be someone's wife. And
Right.
That's one of the things that really was very powerful for me in my own personal struggles, was to engage women. A lot of times, these women become a walking cliche, where all of a sudden they're divorced with kids and they don't have any, their life's flipped upside down, and they don't feel like they have anything of value to offer. And you and I, just sitting here talking, we obviously know that's not true, but what you believe is what your truth is. And
Right.
That's what I believed. I believed I didn't have anything to offer. And now I know that that's not true. And that changed in that exact moment when Tony engaged with me. And hopefully, and what I've seen is that coming out and experiencing these events with these horses, when you take in the sense of a horse's smell, when you look into their eyes, and when you put your hands on their chest and feel the power and heart that's within, it is experiential and it does make a shift.
Right. You mentioned you had the intervention with Tony. There's so many people that have been to his events, and they watched the movie that came out this year, of "I'm Not Your Guru." What was that like when you had the intervention from that moment? Like that he first called you out, was like, "Oh crap, he just picked me." What was the experience like?
You know what? That's a great question. It actually wasn't like, "Oh crap, he picked me." I raised my hand, and I knew he was going to pick me.
Okay.
I believed it. I felt like my hand was the only one up in the whole room. And I stood up, and I had the guy next to me actually had to like hold me up. I was shaking so badly. And he took me back to a place in my life where I remembered who I was. I remembered what it was like to look into the world with wonderment and have an idea that, you know what, this is a great, big, scary, awesome, amazing place. And I'm going to go do something very cool. And joy and uncertainty lit me up. And that's what changed.
Wow.
And one of the things that really inspired me was directly after that event, my brother died of a drug overdose. And he was an ex-Navy, and he was a veteran. And when I started this foundation, I said, I'm going to do this in memorial for him. I'm going to help veterans. And through my own struggles, I'm going to help women. And then looking at the young people, I'm going to hopefully help young boys and young women and keep from being in a space and going down the path that my brother and 22 other veterans every single day do.
Right.
And keep from a space where somebody wakes up one day at the age of 38 and goes, you know what, I have nothing else left. I have nothing to offer this world. Why am I here?
Right. And that's a struggle that so many veterans struggle with, go through, that you look at the environment that so many go through. They're part of something, and you think about all the reasons that are there, and so many, they lose that sense of purpose once they're out.
Yes.
They're not prepared for it. They're not given the tools. The peer group is no longer there like it was. There's so many different things.
Right. The good, bad, and the otherwise of it. And that's interesting you bring that up, because I had a gentleman there, and he says he remembers the exact button on his shirt. He was unbuttoning his shirt for the last time as he was taking off his uniform. And he realized at that second button on his shirt that he was not going to be allowed to put that shirt back on ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And that by choice or not by choice, war veteran or not, you're no longer a part of something that defined you.
Right.
And we cling to that, our identities. And when we have a shift in identity that is that profound, it can really put us in a position to have to reinvent ourselves or find some way to know that we have something else to offer the world than what we have for our entire lives.
Right. And you look at when you think about veterans, speaking of that first-hand experience, being one of the greatest challenges, as you mentioned, with identity, for some people, that's all they know in their whole adult life, and suddenly that's not the case anymore. They have to reinvent themselves.
Yes. And
there's never been any type of training of, by the way, here's how you do the next thing. It's always been this one thing. You're the master of it. And then that's taken away from you.
Absolutely.
And it's good luck. Have a nice life.
Yes.
And that's it.
Exactly.
And it's something that not
feeling of
capable.
Loss and that feeling of being lost.
Right.
Shakes the foundation.
Right. Oh, definitely. And then when you look at the peer group, you go from having this high caliber peer group every day that you're around with them to suddenly you're off by yourself.
Yeah.
That's traumatic.
And who's your tribe all of a sudden?
Right. Exactly.
You look around for people like you, and it used to be very clear cut. So much so there's a certain number of stripes on their arm or a certain number of ribbons or medals on their chest. or a
Right.
certain number of stars on their helmet. But now I don't know who my tribe is. I don't know where I belong.
Right. Exactly.
And that reintegration can be trauma enough, much less if you saw anything, any war action or anything, of the unconscionable things that happen when there's conflict.
Right, exactly. All these things compound on
Absolutely.
top of it.
So being able to come out to the Zenerjen Foundation and reconnect with themselves through the spirit of something that does not pass judgment, that has also themselves had their own story of brokenness, where someone else felt that they were trash and threw them to the side and cast them away.
Right.
And see that there is a beauty in that they still have something of value to offer. That's what the Zenerjen program is about.
Right. So tell us a little bit more about the Zenerjen program, because it has in itself a fascinating background of how it's evolved to help people.
Yeah, that's really what it has done. It has evolved. I started off by giving, horseback riding lessons and, horsemanship lessons, to now bringing this amazing, program to people. And what I do is I do certain types of workshops. I do a half day and full day workshops where we go out and engage with the horses and understand their personalities, understand our own personalities. And I usually take groups, between 12 and 15 people to come out. Now, the cool thing about these programs is that any walk of life can walk through my door and experience something profound. You don't have to be somebody that is quote unquote broken, because none of us really are, right?
Right.
So doing this for like corporations or individuals or anyone that is interested in coming and experiencing something magical with a horse, in my program, that just benefits the people that can't afford to come through, and they get to come through for free. So it's a unique model that the benefactors get to see firsthand what their support is going to allow to transpire through groups like Boys Town and PTSD veterans and women that are in shelters.
Right.
So they get to see it and feel it and have their own breakthroughs and their own experiences and their own personal shifts. And you may be asking, well, how do I get to do that? Well, there's a lot of different ways you can support it. You can come to I have lots of events that we plan on the calendar throughout the year. So we have events at the ranch all the time. You can come. I have people from all over the world, from the UK, from Australia, from Canada, from from Serbia, from, all across Peru. People from all over the world come and visit me at my center. So you don't have to be like just up the road. I have certain experiences that allow for that. And for a simple donation to the foundation that allows the other groups to come through for free, you can come and visit me too.
So tell us a little bit more about the model that you have, because it's different than the way a lot of nonprofits work. Of you're going for the corporations to be able to ultimately help people who could not necessarily do it themselves.
Absolutely. And that's, what you just segued beautifully. That's exactly where I was going. If you work for a company or you do team building, that's really, really kind of an amazing thing. If you do like bringing a leadership team out and studying things like that. We've all done paintball and the trust ball and ropes courses and those sorts of things. This gives businesses an opportunity to not only support these programs so they can come through for free, but for the corporation to be able to have something that takes back that is really beneficial for them as a team, to do a team building exercise, to understand what the leadership style is. And like I referred to before, why one department isn't getting along with another as well as it could be, why communication styles differ, how you can build your sales team in a stronger way. Do you see, how are you being presented? Is that how you're being perceived? And in business, how important is it that how you present is how you're perceived?
Right. So how did you come up with this model? Because if you think how a lot of nonprofits would typically work, it's someone's going to just say, hey, give us a check for this. And everyone just kind of says, yay, and they're all happy, versus you're doing something distinctly different.
Yeah. Well, the way I came up with that idea was I was doing this for profit prior to this. So I was having people, and I was like, this is cool. Look how many people I'm helping. And I was getting great testimonials and awesome results. And I always wanted to be able to give back. And I was like, well, how do I give back? Well, I was taking my for-profit business and giving it to other nonprofits. And what I discovered was I've always said, I want to be able to do this and just do it for free. And that's when I discovered the world of nonprofit. And I looked at what was possible. And the old mantra, many hands make a light load. And we're people that can send in donations and support the program, whether they experience it themselves or not. It was a very powerful way for me to be able to leverage the number of people's lives I'm able to have an impact on through this program.
Wow. Now, after you came up with this model, how has it been received by not only the different organizations you're helping, but by the corporate world who are participating in your workshops?
It's been amazing. The leadership team that has come out and seen what the possibilities are with this are like, oh my God, they had no idea. And it's really, Byron, my biggest challenge is to communicate, like, through this medium, what an experience is like. It's almost like trying to describe to somebody what a cheeseburger tastes like. Like, how do you describe that? Well, it's juicy and it's flavorful, but until you take a bite and sink your teeth in it to yourself, you really don't have a clear understanding. And everybody's perception is different. Everybody's experience is different. And as Yoda says, what's in the cave? Only what you take in. And that's the absolute truth. You get out of it exactly what you put into it. And without exception, every person that walks onto the property and goes through my experience says, oh my gosh, this is not what I expected. It blew me away.
Wow. And that's a common theme by the sounds of it, of people just having that one conception, one idea when they're walking through the doors and leaving with another one. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's unique. And that word's thrown around a lot. So I really am cautious to use it. But it is truly unique.
And there's no reason to be cautious about it. When you have a unique program, it's owning it, because you do have something that you're doing it differently than the way most people are. You're creating that participation on both from the giver, so they're having a transformation, but also the people who are another benefactor. So it's a win-win for everybody. Exactly.
And I even add a third win in there, because we forget sometimes the horses are winners too. Because I bring in rescued horses and I rehabilitate them. So the horses benefit, the people that are the benefactors benefit, and the beneficiaries of the program and benefit. So it comes full circle. It's a full circle experience of helping horses, helping people.
So how did you come across the notion of using rescued horses? Because it's different than what you would typically hear from most people.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because it really kind of stems back to that whole give back. I always wanted to give back, even when I didn't have very much. I was still donating time, resources, skills, energy, even any opportunity I had. And I found myself drawn to supporting the rehabilitation of rescued horses, because that's where my skill set lie. And so I was working with different rescues around the state of Florida and volunteering at therapeutic riding centers and all kinds of things to be able to, give back. And what I found is that I wanted to bring these horses into my barn and in my environment, into my Zenerjen world, so they could have that experience and get the greatest value from my time. So when I brought them up, I was like, oh my gosh, there is something to this. All the horses in my barn are rescued horses. So it just kind of worked out. I have one horse that's not, but with the exception of him, every horse that is in there has some kind of story about somebody not wanting them, not treating them properly. One of my horses was hit in the face with a shovel. Another one was starved and neglected. I mean, they have their own stories just as we do. And when people come in and see that the beauty that these animals have and the spirit that they have to offer, and then they can look inside themselves and see the beauty that then they also have to offer, they walk away with an idea and a gift that allows them to pursue their life at a higher level.
Wow. So how would you go about rehabilitating a horse? Because we've explored how people are interacting with the horses and they're having that transformation. What was it like for the horse? You have the one that was hit in the face with a shovel. It just made I get that full body cringe, like, oh my gosh, ouch.
Yes, knocked him out cold. And it's kind of funny that you asked that, because I say they don't like me very much for the first 2 weeks, but then they love me for the rest of their lives, because it's a struggle for them to make that shift in identity to understand what changes they need to make. Now, we're still talking about horses, right? This sounds an awful lot like what needs to happen with people. Right. So the same thing needs to happen with people. And I make some references a lot of times to, the development of people like Helen Keller. She didn't like her tutor, Anne Sullivan, very much at the beginning. But would we know who Helen Keller was had she not had an Anne Sullivan in her life to stay with her, see the value in her, and have the tenacity and trust that the process would work and that this young lady had something of value to offer? No, of course not. Exactly. And so, I have a horse in my barn right now. When he came to my barn, we even changed his name. So we had a huge shift in identity. And whatever we said to him, we had no negative words to say to this young horse. He's not a brat. He's not a jerk. He's not a pain in the butt. He's now clever. He's smart. He's tenacious. We change the way we describe him and change the identity that we give not only to the horse, but the people that engage with the horse. So they understand that the communication that they put out there is the identity and the meaning behind what they're looking at.
Wow. And you said something there. I think it's applicable to not just the horses, but people. It's the language that we use to not only describe ourselves, but those around us, of how they truly impact us.
Yes.
And people don't think about that. Like, the wrong words can have such a negative impact on everything in your life. Absolutely.
And even to take it a step further, the wrong energy. Because have you ever had an instance where you go, you know what? I just can't describe it. What the feeling was? It was kind of like being this, but it was kind of like being that, but I can't really put words to it. But it was just this feeling I had. And that, when you come out and engage with the horses, that's what you get. Because there's only so many actual English words. Even though English has more words in its language than any other language on the planet, there's some words that we just can't use to describe things. And so you start to feel things, and you start to get in tune with a piece of yourself that you don't tap into very often in this Pokemon Go attached to your phone workaday world, right?
Yeah, right.
So you disconnect from that, and you come out to nature. And so when you can visualize yourself standing in this lush green pasture and this animal connecting to you non-verbally in a way where you feel things that you can't describe, you get a connection and you get some introspection. And you get a gift. You get something to take away that'll shift you.
And that in itself is so critical for people to begin making that shift. Because when people start growing on the inside, so much starts changing. It creates that ripple effect. And it all goes back down to people becoming aware of what you offer and how they can be able to interact with it. Yeah. What's been some of the struggles that you've had to go through in getting your message, getting your mission out to people?
I'm just one person. That's the number one thing. I'm just one person, and I have 24 hours in a day, just like everyone else, 168 hours in a week. And leveraging that, just being able to, I keep coming back to many hands make a light load. This is a message that I really, truly believe, and the people around me that are coming to me now that see the program believe really needs to be shared. Like people like yourself who have been kind and generous enough to invite me onto your podcast to share my story and share this, a little bit of my struggles and a little bit of what my story has been about. But my number one thing is that I'm just one person. And the second part would be that that it is a unique experience, and it's very challenging to describe it in words. What you feel, very challenging to describe that.
Well,
but I can tell you this: the support that we do get, the donations that do come in, allow for people that need it, that can't afford it, can come through. And, it sounds like this is all this big serious thing. Oh, I'm going to tell you, we have a lot of fun. We play games and we do really a lot of cool, fun stuff because we learn the most when we're doing things that are fun, right? When we discover for ourselves. So it's not all just doom and gloom. It's really, it's not that kind of a program. We have a lot of fun and we play with the horses, and we do have some pretty cool stuff. And those horses, man, I'll tell you, they're clowns. They are so funny. Dante will take off your hat and move your chair, and Trace will fart on you.
Oh, nice.
It's funny. I mean, there's a video on my Facebook going around right now, and that of Dante. He's kissing this baby. My friend had a 4-month-old baby out, and he's just kissing on that little baby, and it was just the cutest dang thing. So we have an amazing time, and it's a lot of fun. And you're right. My biggest struggle is for people to know about this and understand it and support it.
Right. I think that's always the challenge when it comes down to getting that word out there, that people want to know more and they see what's possible. But it is becoming noticed in this crowded world, especially when you're just one person. So outside of just obviously, donations, what are some of the other ways that people can be able to help, since you're one person with 24 hours in the day, like everyone else?
Well, I can, I'll just shortlist it for you. Come experience it. You want to experience it? Come be a benefactor and experience the program firsthand. Share it on your Facebook, like my page, share videos, share this podcast, that kind of thing. Obviously, donations are one. We don't have to take monetary donations. If you got an old boat, we take boats. Hey, apple stock. If you got any apple stock, we'll take some of that. Nobody's turning that loose. So right. We have a lot of different ways. If you're in the Florida area and you want to come out and volunteer, if you're in the Orlando area, we actually always need volunteers. That doesn't mean you can't volunteer by not being in the Orlando area. If you wanted to do a fundraising or talk to someone about like your business about coming out, or I have a group that's thinking about flying in from north of Boston. I have a group that's coming in from Carolinas, so you don't have to be from the Orlando area to help support this program. I'm getting a shout out on a radio station in St. Louis, and we were just featured on Fox News. So, getting television programs and getting those things in place, it's really, just awareness.
Right.
And of course, donations do help too. Trust me. We're trying really hard right now to get Boys Town out, and we're getting just a little bit closer. We're almost there. So. And
what does it take to get Boys Town out there?
Let's talk about that for a second. It's in order to get a group out, for a group of boys or a group of veterans or ladies group, it's a $3,000 donation for the day. And that includes lunch, it includes the whole experience, and that gets a good-sized group out, around 15 to 20 people out for the day. So $3,000 donation. If you love horses and want to sponsor a horse, we take partial and full donations or full sponsorship for horses. And, guess what? When you sponsor things, you get perks. You want to come out and see me, that kind of thing? Those kind of donations get you some cool perks too. So, full donation on a horse. The horses aren't free. I know the old joke is how you make a small fortune in horses is to start with a large one. So, so we have full sponsorships available at $600 a month, but, anything between, upwards, leading up to that amount is partial sponsorships are welcome as well. Dante, Bella, and Trace need sponsorship. So that's a very cool thing. I'm actually, Dante has one partial sponsor. And so we're looking to have those guys helped out, and, it all goes on there. You can actually, if you aren't interested in giving a monetary donation, and you're like, well, I want to make sure my money goes to the programs. You can go online and go to our website, and we have an Amazon wish list for like products that support the horses. They need, certain medications, or, God forbid, we still need things like ink pens and toilet paper. So, to keep things going. So if you want to make sure that what you're doing goes to the programs, then you can go to the Amazon link on the website and donate through there as well.
Wow.
We try to make it as easy as possible for you to support us.
Well, that's the most important thing. You want to make it ease of access to how people can be able to support you.
Absolutely.
You have this incredible program that more people need to not only know about, but to experience. And that makes a world of a difference.
Absolutely.
So then how can people learn more about the programs that you have and ultimately how to support you?
Well, that's easy enough. Just go to my website, zenerjen.org, zenerjen.org. And that has all the information that you'll need to be able to reach out to me. The number that's on there is my direct line. And my email is jen@zenerjen.org, zenerjen.org. And we are a nonprofit 501c3. So we are definitely a charity, and your money goes directly to support these horses and the people that come through and experience it.
Oh, excellent. And what's one parting thought that you'd like to leave people with, of something that they can be able to do today to start making a difference in their lives, and especially when it comes around horses?
Look in the mirror and say to yourself, believe in yourself. It will change your life.
Wow. Now that is powerful, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because most people, sometimes they forget about believing in themselves. And that makes the biggest difference.
Yeah. They believe what everybody tells them.
Right. Because when you think about it, no matter what, whether you believe you can or can't, you're right.
That's right.
Definitely. Well, I want to thank you for coming onto the Big Movement podcast today and sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, and your passion that you have for your mission in life to be able to help the lives of so many people.
No, thank you so much for having me. It was a blast to share my story, and reach out to me. We'll talk further. If you're interested in supporting this program on any level, I'd love to hear from you.
Definitely.
Thanks, Byron. I appreciate everything, and I appreciate you hosting me today.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.